So, Andy Hampton, thank you very much for taking time out of your day and joining us in the podcast studio today. I wanted to dive into a couple of things with you because you've joined us recently as one of our head of constellations based down in the southwest of England. And you came from a corporate background and have a bit of a lifer in agency. But tell me, what was the main thing that made that decision in your mind to think, I'm quitting this and I'm going to go on my own?
The main decision for quitting this and going on my own, it was always an aspiration of mine to run my own business. And I think the access to entry these days for any estate agent that's trying to get into the high street, you're talking tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. So when the models kind of were appearing, I did a lot of research into different models, and for me the self-employed model just stood out. It made absolute sense that I could use all the utilities, the right moves, and run my own business without having to pay the tens of thousands of pounds. And I think that's got to be really appealing.
Yeah. And was there a moment in your corporate career that you said, enough's enough, now's the time?
I think I've probably had that moment a few times, if I'm honest. Yeah, of course. I think the decision was, right, okay, there's a fear of failure. That always held me back. And I think people will recognise that. But it was, now or never. And I took a decision to pull some money out of the house. And I was like, let's go for it.
Yeah. And other than obviously setting the financial standpoint for yourself and making sure that you were prepared there, did you do any other preparation before stepping in?
Oh, completely. Without trying to go too deep into my journey. My journey probably for the past 12 years has been a lot of personal development. And I think mindset, your attitude and application is definitely a quality key set.
Other than the financial sort of foundation that you set for yourself, what other preparation did you put into preparing to take this leap?
Yeah, so I started a journey of self-development 12, 13 years prior to actually making the jump. So, things like personal development, mindset, attitude, those types of things. So I did an incredible amount of reading. So that journey really started a long time before. And if I'm honest, I probably was ready to make the jump a lot sooner.
Yeah.
But, through personal circumstances and life, and like I say, what I've touched on, the fear of failure, it just got pushed back and pushed back.
Because I think people potentially not underestimate it, but probably don't give it enough credence. Is that fear of failure can really stop people in their tracks, right?
Yeah. What do they say? The graveyard's got like the most people in there with the failed ideas that never took to fruition. So I think, that it's a big thing. That fear of failure for a lot of people.
I think what people need to, and it's hard. I think people come to their ways of getting over it, but I think there's a real fear of actually not doing this and not taking this leap into self-employment and taking back control for some agents.
I completely agree with you. And then again, when you look back over your life at some point, there's got to be a point where you must think, I wish I'd taken that leap. I wish I'd taken that jump. And I think personally for myself, if I look back on my own deathbed, not in a morbid way, but why didn't I take that jump?
Yeah.
And I think I would rather have known that I took the risk, went for it, looked for the experience rather than not. And I think that's so powerful for people.
Yeah, you're right. And there's so many phrases. It's hard to recall them all, but essentially they are around that, aren't they? In taking that leap rather than regretting it down the road that you never took it, or you took it 3 years too late and the world's moved on. So I think it's a poignant part, but I think it's going to form part of everybody's journey before making this decision.
Completely. And, we've got to face it that there's no perfect time. Perfect isn't a reality that exists. So if you're waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect pot of money, it just really doesn't come about.
Mm.
So at some point you've got to go through that fear. You've got to go
Yeah.
through that and be brave enough and take the risk.
Personal development. You love it. I love it. You know I do. We talk about it a lot. What's been one of the most powerful things that you've done in that space that might benefit you now in your future business career?
Wow. I guess
Your favourite thing?
I guess there's two sides to it. You know, from other than the actual learning side of things, my own personal development from a form of not to stop drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So that enabled me to look at life a lot differently. But from a learning perspective, I'm quite pragmatic. So if there's a thing in my life that I feel like I need to work a little bit harder on, then I'll buy a book
Mm-hmm.
and I'll study it.
Yep.
But going right back to the start, it was the likes of the Tony Robbins, Simon Zinek's,
Yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk's, Russell Brunson's. They were all like the business leaders and some people that really inspired me, especially the Tony Robbins
Love
of the
Tony,
world.
yeah.
Yeah.
A big fan.
So, you know, and try to understand the psychology, why we do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I implemented that really within a working space.
Yep.
And that development from my own personal development, I then put in and put back into the teams that I was running as well.
Mm.
And I just saw massive growth in our organizations.
Brilliant. And I think, do you feel now that you are in a prime position to be able to carry that into your own team?
I think so, yeah. I think so. I know so. It's,
Yeah.
you know, everything that I've done over the past 21 years of a state agency, it just fits really well within this IAD corporation business model, because the development of people is crucial.
Yeah, because you can build that network and spend that time imparting that knowledge that you've built over those 22 years and all the work that you've done to make those breakthroughs and help some other people maybe cut corners and turn corners and, shortcut to success.
Of course. I mean, there's just two sides to that, isn't it? Personal development in a business space, but also in the personal space. And I think, you know, when people come into our business and they realize and they see their own growth and they want to pass that knowledge on to other people,
They do.
that's where it gets really, really exciting.
Yeah.
From a personal space and from a business space as well.
It's so rewarding, isn't it? Like you've seen it in your career and you see it in your business as you grow your network. But when your team members are getting their first wins and getting their first sales under their belt, first exchange, first money in the bank, it's almost a better feeling than when you had it yourself. Like when you get to this point and actually you're being able to help people at scale like that, then their wins are your wins.
I think you got to look back, and I'm going to go back to the point where I was talking about the morbid side and reflection back on, you know, on my deathbed at some point. But what type of fulfilling life did I lead? And I think it's so powerful to have that gift of being able to give back to people and see people fulfill their own potential. Potential is such a funny word, you know. It's like having a box and it's locked. But until somebody understands how to unlock the box and let it all out, then it only becomes real. Otherwise, it's just a locked box.
Yeah, no, I get you. And so you've got fantastic experience. So let's use that. For anybody thinking of making the step or the transition out of employed, as you were in corporate life, and becoming self-employed, what are some of the advice points that you would give them or things to think about before doing it?
I think you've got to start thinking about your reasons why. You know, I mean, running any business, you're going to have your ups and your downs. And, you know, somebody might say that there's a lot more downs than what there is ups, but you've got to have a reason why. And that's what happens if the day turns out like I didn't plan, or my week didn't turn out like I didn't plan, because it doesn't. And, you know, running a business isn't linear. Like it will chuck things at you that will test you. But it's also an incredible learning curve when we talk about growth to create that resilience. So really, you've got to understand your reason why. Why do I want to do this?
Yeah, because that's what keeps you straight when times aren't straight, isn't it? It keeps you on the path and or brings you back to the path when something sets you aside. Knowing why you're doing it, whether it's your family, whether it's the freedom, whether it's the money. Yeah, whether it's that fulfillment of growth, of business development, the network that you want to build, if you know why you're doing this, I think it really helps bring you back on track when life throws you a curveball, and as life does, as property does, as any business does, right?
Absolutely, and I've got it framed on my wall.
Yeah.
I've got it like on a big printed sheet. These are my reasons why.
Brilliant.
And it's a perfect reminder every single day of why I do what I do, and it must be really personal to you as well.
Yeah. Cool. I want to talk to you a little bit with your direct experience now of the high street versus self-employed. Now, I think there's a difference. I believe self-employed is the future of agency for great agents, right? That's just me. That's what I believe. That's what I'm seeing in our day-to-day business. But what do you think the differences are that the customer receives by working with you now as a self-employed business owner or working with you previously in a corporate environment?
I think there's a number. I think that the biggest thing for me, and it's often used as a throwaway in self-employed models where we talk about the personal touch, but there's that continuity of dealing with one person from start to finish. And however long that period of time is, that means you understand the people, you're building the rapport, you're intertwined with their day-to-day lives, you know exactly what's going on. So really what's happening in those moments is that, you're providing a service that can be unmatched anywhere else. And the high streets worked for a long periods of time, but there's no continuity of people. The same one person that walks in and comes and does the valuation is not the same person that you deal with when you do the viewings. He's not the same person necessarily when you come to do the, negotiate the sale. It may not be the same person as the progression of the sale starts. So all of a sudden you've got these different phases, whereas the biggest thing for me is that personal touch, that you can really see it from start to finish. Yeah.
And you just couldn't do that in your previous role, right? Just the way these businesses are set up.
No, of course. I mean, when you look at it, from just purely from a numbers perspective, the high street is all about loading the front end. And let's say, we've got 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 properties on the market. How can you provide that level of service to you just can't, because you haven't physically got the time and in the day. So you can only provide it in little chunks. There's no continuity, as I said.
Yeah, I get it. Do clients get better service from self-employed estate agents?
Undoubtedly, for me, having worked in both the high street and being as a self-employed estate agent, without question, they'll get a better service. And the reason behind that is because it's more continuity in the way that you deliver it. And let's face it, if you're a high street agent, you probably had somebody to value the property. You've probably had somebody come and do the viewings. You've probably had somebody to negotiate the sale. You probably had somebody to see the progression of the sale through. So really, from a self-employed perspective, you're following that all the way through. You understand the peaks and troughs. You understand your client more. You've built the relationship. So there has to be a better service there. There has to be.
Yeah. So you learnt a lot over your period in agency, and you've worked for both corporate and you've worked for yourself in the past. Tell me, from your previous learnings, what are some of the things you're going to carry into this new business, and what are some of the things you're going to simply forget?
Well, through previous dealings, there were obstacles that were chucked in the way of me, and I'm going to make reference to Liz Trust in November, where interest rates were just chucked up and stacked up.
Yeah.
So there are learnings that you can take in everything, but I would say to anybody that if you're thinking about this, you need to learn quick and fail fast. But one of the big things that early on for me is I couldn't put down the work. So I would I would feel as though I'm failing by not having the laptop open and not doing anything. And there has to be a balance that you have to acquire from it as well. Probably the big thing coming into an IAD for me is getting back out and networking, really making sure that I'm using my network stronger. I felt that previously I just became an agent that was purposely just relying on being a referral agent.
Right.
And I knew I only had one form of way of getting the valuations. So I would say probably the biggest thing is now having a look at multiple streams of where the valuations are coming from.
Yeah, good plan. And actually, your business has kicked off fantastically well, with first listing coming within a couple of weeks, a second listing coming through the door. How have you gone about finding those first pieces of business, and what advice would you give to somebody trying to win those first instructions as an agent?
Yeah, I think there's several different things that we've got to look at. Firstly, where's our network? Our network is probably carried in our phone every day.
Yep.
By the people there. So making sure that those people understand exactly what you do and what you're moving into. I think that is a really powerful tool, first and foremost. Secondly, then obviously we've got old school stuff like door knocking, leaflet dropping, and you can break that down into different categories as well. So, can I go back to direct knock in and leaflet dropping, and can I do a canvas drop? And what I would be saying for anybody looking is looking in with the vicinity of where I live, because that's where you're known the most. And then there's obviously the digital side. So social media, how's my presence on social media? And I think these types of things, podcasts, videos, people will get a real good feeling for who you are as a person. And I think that's such important. Like we are, as estate agents, we are people. Yeah. And we have got families and we've got feelings and emotions. And so it's really important for people to understand and see that. And they won't get a picture of truly who you are unless you're prepared to put yourself out there.
Yeah. And it's how people do a lot of their little background research on you and stuff, isn't it? Before somebody is thinking of engaging with you for the first time maybe, or after the event, they want to do their own research. And you need to make sure there is enough out there for them to be able to do that in the right way. So, yeah, making sure that you've curated that and making that available, I think, is so important to that sort of business strategy and helping you convert people. I want to talk now about something that I know is close to your heart. And it's mental health in estate agency, and particularly in what we're doing. Launching an agency can be a lonely thing to do. Starting in business is lonely. It's all on you. The pressure is on you. How can that affect your mental health? And what do you lean into personally to support you on that journey?
Yeah, so when I first started that self-employed journey, I was very much alone. So, coming out of a typical office space where you've got people around you, and then the first sort of brand that I worked under was very much left alone. And I think if I'm just going to bring that up quickly in terms of like the IAD model, is that we've got people around us that support us. Our mentors and coaches, these people there to guide you. And, it can be a really tough place. And as we've already touched on, it can really push you to your limits, but the rewards are so good. So from a mental perspective, I think it's really important that you have some form of routine, whether that's you're breaking up your day, whether that's you're networking and you are going out and seeing people, and make it sure that it's in your diary, and not to isolate yourself.
Yeah, I think that isolation can come quick. And I think it's really important to lean into people around you and the people that are there to support you, whether you do it with us or you're doing it out on your own. Actually make sure that you've got that person to talk to, that shoulder to cry on, someone to high five on the wins. You know, it's not all about the down parts. It's sometimes the good bits as well, having somebody to celebrate with. And at the beginning, they are all small wins, right? But celebrate them because they're all part of the journey. And actually, you'll look back in years to come, and they were the fun bits. Like those little wins on the way through. That was the energy all the way through. How's fitness played a part in your mental health routine and your weekly routine?
Oh, massive. But that's what the model was allowed, that flexibility. So for me, one of the first things that go in my diary is that the gym is in three times throughout the course of the week.
Perfect.
And that the gym is just more than a place to go and build a muscle. Surprisingly, one of the big things I found is that it gives me also the discipline.
Yeah.
And that was the days I don't want to go to the gym, the days I'm really tired. It gave me the discipline to just go and do it. But surprise, surprise, has a big effect then into your business journey as well.
Yeah.
Because the days that you don't feel like you want to do something, the days you're not feeling your best, it allows you to do those things, the discipline it carries. So the fitness part of it is really, really important for various different levels. And of course, you always feel great after a workout. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. I've also this time around I've incorporated a midday sort of just a walk around the block as well.
Bit of a reset.
Yeah, just a bit of a reset. So if I've come in and I've dropped the kids off to school in the morning and then I've gone and hit the phones, then by sort of 1 o'clock, I'm like, right, coffee, and then I'll go for a quick walk around the block for 10, 15 minutes. Yeah,
it's really powerful just to get out of that space environment, because again, that can all play into the downsides or the isolation bit is actually get out, get your head up, look around, talk to people, and all of a sudden it's become part of the business strategy as you're on a regular walk. We've got agents that do a regular dog walk and they get absconded on the way round for evaluation because you're the bloke with the Labrador. We have that in our business, and I think it can form a great part of the working week. Really nice to have that sort of refreshing moment. I think it's really good. So, last question. What was your biggest fear, bar none, and what have you done to try and overcome it?
It's hard to put it into just one biggest fear because there were two.
Okay.
So my situation is that I live by myself. I've got 2 children that I see regularly of 50%. And for that reason, I am typically by myself.
And it's the by yourself that was the biggest fear?
The biggest fear for me was money.
Okay.
Money. That everything was actually was just on me. So the two things for me that I would say is the fear of failure and money aspect. Yeah. What if that sale doesn't go through? How long will it take through? Yeah. And of course there are moments like that.
Yeah.
And you will do your best in order to facilitate making sure that it's going through within a particular period of time. Certainly in the early days, it's very much like that. So the two things for me were the fear of failure and money.
Yeah.
But the way I got through it was just having pure belief in myself.
Good.
And belief in yourself doesn't come just by taking a pill. It literally comes by having the experience and going through it and creating the resilience and taking that first step.
Yeah.
And not thinking too far into the future. It's literally, I'm in the moment. What can I do that will affect my business today? And I think that's something that you learn gradually over a period of time. Today, what am I going to do? And let's not worry about the future. But if you do all the good things and all the habits really early on, and in the moment, then you've got every chance of succeeding.
Andy, thank you very much.
Thank you.